Today we continue with the fifth installment of the Wrong Turn series, which is a sequel to the fourth film, telling the story of three brothers leaving the sanatorium. The story takes place in a small town near Lake Beauty in West Virginia, where the annual Halloween celebration is being held. It was once rumored that a massacre involving cannibals occurred in this town. Young people from all over the country flocked to the town, not in fear but out of curiosity about the rumors. On this day, a reporter named Kayleen is recording a program introducing the theme of this year's Halloween, which is based on cannibals. Various cannibal masks are displayed around, evoking both curiosity and fear. After finishing the recording, Kayleen plans to head into the mountains, and she won't return until 11 p.m. The director reluctantly agrees. As she reaches the mountains, a cannibal suddenly appears in front of her. Thinking it's just someone in a mask from the town, she doesn't think much of it, then turns to run in the opposite direction, only to find another cannibal blocking her path. Still unbothered, she continues forward, but another cannibal suddenly appears and laughs loudly at her. After being taunted repeatedly, the reporter becomes angry and starts verbally attacking the cannibals, even insulting their families and ending with an obscene gesture. The cannibal then strikes with a knife, cutting off her middle finger. Colleen begins to panic and turns to run. During her escape, she encounters a man who hides her in the grass and carefully bandages her wound. After the cannibals leave, Maynard pulls out an axe and kills Colleen. This man turns out to be the adoptive father of the three brothers. He is an escaped convict, even more brutal than the cannibals, hiding in the town for years. He brought the three brothers from the sanatorium into the civilized world. Previously, no one would have noticed in the mountains. Now that they're in the town, everything must be done without leaving evidence. He gives the three brothers a long lecture. Sawtooth tries to resist, but Maynard's strength is overwhelming. With one swing, he knocks Sawtooth to the ground, then warns the three, "You're living under my roof now, so you will do things my way." Meanwhile, in a police car, Carter is driving to the town to maintain order for the event. Along the way, her husband calls to ask if she'll be home for dinner. Carter replies that the town will be busy tonight and she'll need to work overtime, so he shouldn't wait for her. Her husband says he'll cook dinner and bring it to her later. Meanwhile, 5 young people are heading to the town. The driver is Billy, who is in a relationship with Cruz. Sitting in the middle is Lita, who is with Gus in the front, while Julian is on the side. While driving, they suddenly almost hit a man in the road. They manage to avoid him, but the car crashes into a tree instead. When they get out to check, they find Maynard lying on the ground, though they hadn't hit him. Billy approaches to check, and suddenly Maynard flips over and attacks with a knife, fortunately only grazing Billy's arm. Gus and Julian immediately rush in to punch and kick Maynard, and the three brothers, hiding in the shadows, are ready to strike. Luckily, Carter arrives just in time, and the three brothers, sensing the situation isn't right, retreat. Billy's group and Maynard are taken to the police station. While leaving, contraband is found in their car. Carter orders the officers to stay behind to wait for a tow truck to take the car away. She heads back to the station, and once she leaves, the three brothers emerge. An officer notices something is wrong and is about to draw his gun when Three Fingers shoots him in the head with 2 arrows. The two brothers subdue the officer, and then Sawtooth stabs him in the brain. Soon, night falls, and the group reaches the police station in the town. Lita, in an attempt to avoid being expelled, starts shifting the blame, claiming she had no involvement with the contraband or the assault, so why should she be locked up? Cruz and Gus agree with her logic, and they all push the responsibility onto Billy. Billy, showing great courage, tells Carter that all the contraband was his, and no one else was involved. Carter, thinking about how chaotic the event will be tonight and how crowded the jail is, reluctantly decides to release everyone except Billy. Maynard, meanwhile, is not happy. He's been locked up with a drunk, and the stench is unbearable. Carter says she doesn't care. Meanwhile, the director is preparing for the event, but the reporter still hasn't returned. With no other options, the director asks an assistant to replace the reporter. Around them, many people are wearing cannibal masks, but the real cannibals have already infiltrated, planning to rescue Maynard from the police station. Carter, with some free time, checks Maynard's background on the internal network. He's an escaped convict who has been on the run for 30 years. In this area, there is no statute of limitations for murderers, so Carter calls the town's police station and tells them to send someone to pick him up by 10 a.m. the next day. Maynard threatens Carter, saying she has provoked the wrong person and won't live until morning. "My children will come to rescue me." The cannibals dismantle the town's signal tower, cutting off all communication. Carter's phone call is abruptly disconnected. Maynard smiles ominously. Later, the three brothers arrive at the power plant, where only one security guard is on duty. He's bored late at night. He notices someone has entered through the security cameras and assumes it's local kids causing trouble, so he goes out to try to send them away. The three brothers, seeing this as an opportunity, capture him, tie him up, and drag him toward the high-voltage power lines. With the security guard's screams, the power plant short-circuits, plunging the town into darkness. Carter senses something is wrong, and Maynard mocks everyone, saying, "Your time is running out. My children will come and rip out your livers, eating them in front of you." At the police station, Carter is the only one left, as everyone else is out maintaining order in the town. Meanwhile, the officers are off task, picking up a woman by the side of the road, planning to get intimate in the car. They leave the walkie-talkie outside the car, and Carter's calls go unanswered. Cruz, meanwhile, is bringing dinner to Billy in the cell. On the way, she notices a person wearing a mask standing in the street. It's the third brother in disguise, but he doesn't respond when she greets him. Cruz starts to panic and runs, but the third brother chases her down. Despite her best efforts, Cruz is caught and killed by the third brother with a knife. Meanwhile, Gus and Lita in their hotel decide to take advantage of the dark night for some intimacy. Julian, feeling awkward, excuses himself to find Billy. When he reaches the police station, he finds that Cruz never arrived. Maynard comments, "Don't expect her to show up. She's already a corpse." Julian sensed something was wrong, so he stayed at the police station to assist Carter. The couple in the hotel had finished, and Lita went to the bathroom to take a shower. At that moment, Dez heard a knock on the door. When he opened it, One Eye was standing there. Thinking it was just a drunk person who had gotten the wrong room, Dez scolded him and shut the door. But not long after, the door knocked again. This time, it was Sawtooth. Dez was angry and asked him what he wanted. Before he could finish, Sawtooth used a rope to trap Dez's neck, and with One Eye's help, they dragged him away. Lita heard the noise outside and realized something was off. She put on her clothes, grabbed a pipe, and hid behind the door. One Eye came in and started searching the room. Suddenly, Lita attacked him from behind. But the weak blow did no harm to the cannibal. One Eye pinned her to the floor, but luckily, she noticed a small knife nearby. She grabbed it and stabbed him, temporarily escaping danger. Meanwhile, Carter's husband arrived at the police station and noticed the town was experiencing a power outage. He thoughtfully prepared candles for her. He also realized Carter hadn't eaten yet and decided to head home to make her a sandwich. Before he left, Maynard's words sent chills down his spine.
Last Supper.
Elsewhere, the three brothers tied Gus to a trailer, with the other end fixed to a tree, and broke his legs with a hammer. They then threw Gus in front of the police station. Carter heard his cries and rushed out to save him. Suddenly, a cannibal drove over and killed Gus. This made Carter realize the severity of the situation. She realized Maynard wasn't joking, and with all the officers unreachable, decided to release Billy. She also gave each person a gun to guard the station. When morning came, the other officers would return. The drunk man suggested going to a nearby second-hand store. They had a generator there and could use the radio to call for help. He wanted Carter to join him, but she insisted that guarding the station was the priority. "You three stay here, I'll go for the radio," she said. As expected, Carter found the radio and generator inside the store. She immediately started calling for help. The signal was received by a man living in another state. Carter told him that 3 cannibals were attacking the police station and asked him to call the officers around the lake to assist. But the man Googled the lake's event and found out they were hosting a cannibal-themed Halloween. He thought Carter was joking and hung up after a few words. Lita arrived at the police station, but just as she knocked, the drunk man shot at her. Luckily, she wasn't hurt. Hearing the gunshot, Carter rushed back to the station to check on her. The noise also caught the attention of the cannibals. Billy and the drunk man argued, blaming the drunk for almost hurting their friend. Billy was close to a breakdown. He had been trying to reach Cruz but hadn't been able to, so he told Carter he was going out to look for him. Carter wanted to stop him, but Billy insisted, "Either you let me go or lock me up." Reluctantly, Carter agreed and took Julian along. The two of them, armed with guns, formed a death squad, but what they didn't know was that the cannibals had already targeted them. After a while, they found Cruz by the roadside. Julian wanted to pull Billy back, but Billy insisted on taking Cruz's body. Suddenly, Three Finger appeared behind them. Enraged, Billy grabbed his gun and chased after him. Both guns almost touched Three Finger's skull, but neither shot hit. Instead, they were knocked out by a shovel wielded by Sawtooth, and Julian was knocked down by One Eye. When Billy woke up, he found himself buried in the dirt with only his head showing. Nearby, Julian was chained to a pole. Suddenly, Three Finger drove over with a cutting machine and ran over Billy's face. Julian's fate was just as grim. Carter realized they hadn't returned and feared the worst. The only option now was for the drunk man to drive to another town to seek help, using their radio to inform all nearby police stations. Maynard, meanwhile, began convincing Lita, "Why not save yourself? Persuade Carter to release me and I'll disappear with my children into the night. We won't hurt you." Lita believed him and went to Carter to convince her. But Carter replied, "I will deliver justice and hold you and your children accountable." Afterward, the drunk man set off. But a moment of distraction caused him to hit a cannibal trap. The tire blew out, and he lost control of the car, flipping into a ditch. When he woke up, he found himself in the store across from the police station. The three brothers had put him in a barrel and planned to light a fire and roast him. While Carter observed the situation outside, Maynard began his persuasion again. "You can ambush Carter from behind, threaten her with a gun, and let me go." He promised that his children would spare her once she released him. Meanwhile, the store was set ablaze, and Carter, seeing the fire, decided to investigate. But a gas tank exploded, sending Carter flying and injuring her severely. Seizing the opportunity, Maynard launched a verbal attack on Lita. "Now no one can protect you. Releasing me is your only way to survive. I'll have my children spare you. You must trust me." After much inner turmoil, Lita ultimately decided to release Maynard. However, Maynard didn't keep his promise. He grabbed a pen from the table and stabbed her eyes out. As he ran out, Lita called for help, but Maynard followed with a gun. Carter, upon seeing this, shot Maynard in the shoulder and sent him back to the cell. When Carter stepped outside, she saw her husband's car in front of the door. She walked over and upon inspection found her husband bound by the cannibals and rigged with a device. A blade was attached to his stomach, connected to the car door. Opening the door would trigger the blade, cutting him open. Unaware of the trap, Carter opened the door, causing the blade to slice her husband's stomach open. At that moment, Three Finger drove up and crashed into Carter. She shot at him, but he was unharmed. They fought, but eventually, the cannibal knocked Carter unconscious and took her back to the police station. Meanwhile, Lita, who couldn't bear Maynard's verbal abuse, decided to leave on her own. When One Eye and Sawtooth arrived at the police station, they released Maynard and locked Carter in a cell, setting a trap on her. They taped a gun to her mouth, attached wires to the trigger, and tied the other end to her foot. Any movement would pull the trigger. Before leaving, they set the station on fire. Faced with being burned alive, Carter chose to pull the trigger. Meanwhile, blind Lita, walking on the road, thought she was being rescued when a car approached. But it was Maynard and the three brothers. They took Lita back to their home, and the movie ends here.